Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Daemon sat on a comfy couch, with only his pants on, and his upper body had nothing but his coin necklace. Two gorgeous women sat next to him, in nothing but lingerie, one on each side, and he had his arms around their shoulders with a huge smile. HHHMM, what a night. The woman to his right cooed. She had long brown hair. Yeah, you have so much stamina, the one with black hair on his left said, as she traced circles around his pecs, feeling his defined muscles. They weren't big or huge, just defined and rock hard. I've never seen a man that could keep us both busy all night, the brown-haired one said. Mahehe, yes, there's more than enough of Daemon to go around, the blood angel said before picking up a cup of sake from the table in front of him, and drinking it. Ah, he sighed refreshingly with a smile. Just then a door to the room next to them opened and Naruto stumbled into the room holding his head and cringing. Fuck, he groaned. The S wrong with you, Naruto? Daemon asked. I have a hangover, goddammit, he replied. I'm never drinking with you again. Oh it up. I'm just showing what the good life is like, Daemon said. You speak so highly of life yet you take it without hesitation. Naruto said, sitting on the other side of the table. Oh. Are you a ninja Orison? The black-haired woman asked. Ashina. Don't pester him about things like that, it's his business, the brown-haired girl said. Why? Daemon asked Ashina. Because I think that's hot, she purred. Daemon grinned. Well, I'm no ninja Orison, but I'm definitely a warrior of sorts. Are you like a mercenary or something? Take any job for the right price. The brown-haired one asked. Now look who's pestering Rika, Ashina said. Well, he started talking, so I guess he's okay with it, Rika said. Oh God, please. Don't get him started. He went on for hours when we were drinking at the bar. Naruto exasperated. You ask him a question about his goals and or life and he just goes and goes and goes. I thought he'd never shut up. Mahehehe. Ah, I do tend to babble though, don't I? Daemon chuckled. It's a curse. More sake? Rika asked, holding the bottle over his cup. Yes please, he answered, and she poured him a cup, which he drank down. So, what do you do then? Ashina asked. Daemon grinned. I could show you, but only if you accept a business proposal, of sorts, he said. Ooh, and what would that be? Ashina asked. Yeah, tell us, Rika said. Daemon grinned and stood up. My lord, are you doing what I think you're doing? I don't think that's wise, Naruto said. Silence. Let me worry about these things, the blood angel said, before going to the door and locking it. He turned back to the women. Naruto, some room if you will, he said. Right, he answered, getting up and moving to the side of the room. Ahem. Daemon cleared his throat. Ooh, are you gonna sing? Rika asked with excitement. Ahahaha, like I can sing. Daemon laughed, before turning away and mumbling to himself. It's odd, I'm a godly figure of omnipotence, yet I can never land the simple note, God. So what you gonna do? Dance for us? Ashina asked. I don't know, do you want me to dance? I will, but I can't promise it'll be any good, Daemon said. Oh, for the love of just get on with it, boss man, Naruto said, rolling his eyes. Right, Daemon said, shaking his head. He then relaxed his body, and his wings of blood shot from his back, growing to their normal size. Ashina and Rika gasped and pushed back a little in their seats. Daemon looked at them and flapped his wings. I am the blood angel. Daemon. He bowed. Does that mean you like bad guys? If you're an angel and all. Rika asked. Humans are the bad guys. This world is forever doomed as long as humans walk this earth. I'm an envoy chosen to wipe humans from this planet, bringing true peace, before starting a new empire? I'm not sure I understand. Ashina said. Daemon smiled softly, before turning his wings from blood to red feathers, and he brought his right wing across the room to brush against Ashina's cheek. My dear. I am the savoir of this world, but in order to save it, he said, using his other wing to brush against Rika's face, and hold their heads up by the chin. I need allies, to help me lead my army. If you decide, I shall grant you almighty power, the power needed to survive the world to come before the new empire. All I ask is that you aid me in my quest. I do it, Ashina said. Ashina. Rika said. I don't like anybody but Rika and you. Every other guy that comes through here looking for a good night, is a pig and a perverted jerk, who always finishes long before I do. You're polite, why, funny, energetic, and I'm guessing you're really strong, Ashina said. You've made your decision? Daemon asked. Yes. I'll help you, Ashina said. And you, Rika? Daemon asked. Well, I have to say, the benefits highly outweigh the sacrifice. I'll do it, Rika said. That's my girl, Daemon said before kneeling down and digging the chest of his jacket and pulling out 2 more vials similar to the ones he gave Narunia. In these bottles is the mixedornament of blood, from all of the mighty Biju, and a few other demons. You drink this and you gain power beyond imagination, he said as red chakra emitted from his hand and was absorbed into the vials. Ashina held her hand out, and he gave it to her and hated Rika the other one. Now drink. They popped the lids off the top and both down the blood. Rika smacked her lips with a twinge of disgust on her face. Yuck, she said. Yeah. Nasty. Ashina said. Hey, Daemon-sama, how many of those do you have? Narunia asked. Only one now, but I'll use that for another time, he replied. Arj, Ashina choked as her irises went red like Narunia's. The same happened to Rika. What's happening? Rika choked. Don't worry. It hurts at first but then the power overwhelms the pain, Narunia said. It feels great. It's the closest thing to an orgasm I've ever felt. Ashina fell off the couch onto the floor on her knees, coughing as her and Rika's bodies started glowing red. Ashina dug her nails into the carpet floor, and then lifted her right hand to look at it. She was seeing double, but she could make out her nails were growing sharper. Rika's teeth all turned to razor-sharp, pointed fangs. Naruto put his chopsticks down on the plate he just finished eating from. Ah, wow, Hinata, that was great, he sighed with content. Thanks, Hinata said with a blush and a smile. Yeah, you're really good cook, Tenten said finishing her plate. You need to teach me how to cook like this, Sakura said. I'm glad you all like it, Hinata smiled. Like it? I love it, Naruto said. Me too, Temari grinned. It really was good. So Naruto, what's on your agenda for today? Sakura asked. Well, I was gonna help Ino with the new garden, and then I was gonna do something with you, Naruto said. Sakura and Ino smiled happily. Well, let's get to it, Naruto-kun, Ino said standing up from the table, the earlier the better. Okay, Naruto said standing up. He grabbed everyone's plate and carried them into the kitchen. I'll wash those, Sakura said. Alright. Well, let's go, Naruto said to Ino, and he grabbed their shoes and headed out back, while Ino got the seeds in her room, and ran back downstairs and outside. So have you planted any yet? Naruto asked. No. I was waiting for you, Ino said as she slipped on her gloves and gave Naruto a pair, which he put on. Ino picked up a hand shovel she had put there earlier from her mother's shop, along with a watering pail, and she dug a hole while Naruto filled the watering pail with a hand pump well. Ino dropped the seeds in and covered the holes throughout the patch of dirt. Alright, we need the water now, Ino said. Just a second, Naruto said, picking up the pail and turning around. As he did so, the Shintengen activated and he saw Miryu. Oh hey Ba-sama, Naruto said. Ino's eye twitched. Did you just call me Granny? She growled. Huh. No no no. Not you Ino-chan. Naruto shook his head violently. There's no one else here, Ino said. It's the spirit of the lady who lived here before us, Naruto said. Her presence must have activated the Shintengen. Oh, right, I forgot about that, Ino said. Sorry. Haha, tell her I said hi, Miryu said. She says hi, Naruto said. Ino giggled. Hello, she waved. So how's life going? Miryu asked. Pretty good, Naruto said. Wish you could say the same. So true, she said. Death isn't so bad though, if they had a peaceful death at least. What do you do anyways? Naruto asked. I can go anywhere I want. That's nice. I don't need to eat or sleep anymore, though I miss a good meal every now and then. Well, sorry to cut the conversation short, but I'm kind of busy, Naruto said. That's quite alright, Miryu said. Thanks, Naruto said before deactivating his Shintengen and walking over to Ino and watering the whole patch of dirt thoroughly. Back with Daemon, Ashina and Rika were on the floor panting. What's this feeling? Rika asked. That's power, Narunia answered. I have to say your demon forms aren't as drastic as a change in physical appearance as mine. Yeah, our bodies changed for a few minutes there, and then we turned back to normal, Ashina said. I've never felt this good before. Me neither, Rika said. From now on, Ashina, you will be named Tsuruyomi, and Rika, you will be Kumoyomi, the demon harpy sisters, in which I got the majority of the DNA in those 2 vials from. Which is why I got the idea to do this, 2 of you, and 2 of them, Daemon explained. Now, we'll just need to get you 2 more befitting clothes, Narunia said. Clothes in general would be helpful, and god damn it. I have to ask this, my lord. Why whores? Why me? A merchant of all things? Narunia asked. Well, because pre-existing warriors would probably be more willing to go against me than accept my offer, Daemon said. Now for your first lesson in gaining power. You're all capable of doing this because my chakra was infused with the blood you 3 drank, Daemon said. A knock came at the door. Ashina. Rika. Did the customer who was with you last night leave? A man called through the door. You could tell by his tone he was in hole. Daemon took on a perplexed grin. How convenient. God really has forsaken this world, Daemon said before opening the door, grabbing the man by the throat and throwing him into the room roughly, before closing the door. The man raised his head. Hey jackass. What the hell's your deal? He asked, getting to his feet and turning to Daemon, only to see his wings. The man gasped in fear and dropped to his www. What the air you? Your worst nightmare, Daemon said before turning to Narunia. Hold him down. Right, Narunia answered, and he walked over to him and grabbed his neck before pushing him to the ground, holding him tightly as he gasped for air. Now ladies, absorb his blood, the blood angel said. What? How? Kumoyomi asked. Do we drink it? Because trust me, I hate this guy. I want to make him suffer, Tsuruyomi said. No, just touch him, and the rest comes with instinct if your intention is to absorb the blood. Like this? Narunia asked, and through his hand he pulled the mont's blood slowly out of his neck through the skin. Whoa. It's not much, but I can feel the power growing in me, he said. Leave some for the ladies, you pig, Daemon said. Fine, Narunia said, and stopped absorbing. Get over here, you two, he said. The 2 women walked up and put their hands onto his chest. This is because you treat women like things meant for your UAL fantasies, Tsuruyomi said. Stop. The man choked. No, Kumoyomi said, and they both began pulling the blood from his blood, and with both of them doing it, he quickly withered into dusty dry skin and bone. Good. Now there's lots of other people in this building. Let's have you 3 go and take all of the blood you can find into yourselves, Daemon said. Gladly. This power is awesome, Tsuruyomi said. Naruto pressed Ino against the wall of the side of the house as she wrapped her arms around him, kissing, and playing with each other's tongue. HHHMMM. Ino moaned into the kiss, before breaking it. Hey Naruto. I don't think I'm going to leave any time soon, she smiled. You decided then? Naruto asked. Yep. Pretty much. I'm staying whether you want me to or not, Ino cooed before kissing him. I want you to, he said. Good. Ino said. As noon reared its head over the sky, Tsunade was in her office reading the book again, and this time she found something interesting. Multiple pages in the middle were written like a diary. The creepy thing is it was the Blood Angel's journal, the original Blood Angel's journal. Tsunade read many pages and she'd never seen such expressed rage and undying hatred for a family member as the Blood Angel expressed to his elder brother. Shizune walked in through the door. Tsunade-sama, we have an interesting problem, she said. What? Tsunade's head shot up like a bullet. The feathers, they're all gone. Every single one of them. Everybody is confused. They just vanished 2 nights ago. No one's seen them since, Shizune said. Tsunade's jaw dropped. What do you mean they vanished? Did they sprout legs and walk away? She asked, angrily. No one knows. I'm sorry, Shizune said. Damn it. I knew those things were no good, Tsunade said, biting her thumb as she stared at the book. Naruto and Sakura were walking hand in hand through the Konoha Park. Thanks for spending some time with me today, Naruto-kun, Sakura said. Any time. I felt you were a bit neglected, Naruto said. It's okay, Sakura said. We're here now, she kissed him. I'll always be here, Naruto said. You'll have to spend time with Tenten too, Sakura said. Yeah, I know, I still have 2 days of the week left. I can spend some time both days with her, Naruto said. You have a really big heart, you know that. Sakura said. What do you mean? Naruto asked. Well, despite the perverted side of having so many wives, you can actually find time to love and care for them all, Sakura said. You and the others mean a lot to me. Naruto said. I know. Hey, let's sit down over there and enjoy the warm sun, Sakura said, tugging him up a small hill where they sat down, and Sakura laid her head on Naruto's lap with her front side facing upwards. Naruto started combing his fingers through her soft, pink hair. You know, Sakura, you're really beautiful. I've always thought that, he said. I always thought of you as cute, just really annoying and stupid until I realized what you meant to me. Shortly after Sasuke left the village, Sakura said, the whiskers, never understood why you had them, until I found about Kyuubi, but I've always secretly loved how cute they were. Sakura blushed, rubbed the back of her hand against his cheek, thus his whiskers. Sakura, why would you ever think I would abandon you? Naruto asked. Oh. That, Sakura said. I never thought Sasuke would leave, but he did, so that fear was built into the back of my mind, that you'd do the same. I couldn't just leave you, Sakura. I guess you never realized how much you meant to me, he said softly. I don't deserve it. I was a bitch, even if I never meant any of it, Sakura said shamefully. It's because I knew you weren't a bitch at heart. I just needed to stay patient until I could find that side of you and pull it out, Naruto said. I'm glad you did, Sakura said. Naruto leaned over and kissed her on the lips, and she grabbed his head with her hand. Tsuruyomi slammed a full-grown male Tsutomu up against the wall, holding him in the air by the throat, as she drained his body of the blood within it. Narunia held one of the other whores down as he drained her body. Kumoyomi was holding a guy down on the bed by the neck, as he withered and died. Daemon looked around the main lobby, which had 4 people's corpses, which were nothing but dry skin and bone like all the others throughout the building. He grinned with approval. Good job, you even did it without hesitation, you 3, he said, walking into the back room they were in. It felt great to these bastards, Narunia said. You're too loud and rough, you could be more graceful, Kumoyomi said. Yeah, and more efficient, you make them suffer too long, Tsuruyomi said. Narunia turned his head to them and glared evilly, before turning his body to them. As it began to grow in size and muscle, he pulled his shirt off as dark gray hair grew over his body, and he grew sharp claws, 3 wolf-like tails, and he grew a medium-length snout in which his canines exited from, giving him saber teeth. When done he looked like a mixture of a werewolf and a saber-toothed tiger. He loomed over the now terrified duo of girls by 5 feet, before pointing to his face. Does this look graceful to you? He asked. His voice was much deeper with more treble and a demonic tone to it. No. They said in unison. Didn't think so, Narunia said before changing back into his human form and putting his shirt back on. Well, my followers, let us take our leave. We have an empire to build, mahehehehehe, Daemon laughed evilly. Naruto opened his eyes it was dusk already, and he was laying on the hill with Sakura sleeping soundly next to him, resting her head on his chest. He shook her. Sakura-chan, wake up, he said. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Yeah? She asked. It's getting late, we've been out for a long time. We should head back, Naruto said. Okay. Sakura said. I hope Hinata has dinner ready, I'm starving, she said as they both stood up and walked back home hand in hand. It was still early in the morning and Naruto was in the backyard, on the porch reading the Shintengen scroll. Once again Hinata made an awesome breakfast, so he was full and pumped with energy. He read the scroll to himself out loud. There are 6 different types of spirits, each with their own aura, which is the main distinguishing attribute about the spirits and souls of the living. The list is as follows. He then looked at the list below it. White aura. Divine spirits, blessed spirits that were never really alive, angels. Green aura. Creature spirits, spirits of animals which wander the lands. Purple aura. Cursed spirits, souls which have been cursed or tainted by a foreign influence. Blue aura. Free spirits, the most common souls and spirits, often the normal individual, or the soul of a normal individual after death. Black aura. Forsaken spirits, souls of sinners, and those who never accepted death. Red aura. Demonic spirits, the souls of demons. Naruto heard the back door slide open and he turned to see Hinata walk out onto the porch, and she walked up next to him holding a cup. Hey, here, in case you get thirsty, Hinata said, handing it to him. Ah, thanks, Naruto said before grabbing it and drinking a swig. Nice cold water. So whatcha find out about your Kekkei Genkai? She asked, sitting down next to him. Well, here, read for yourself, Naruto said, handing her the scroll. He pointed to where he was reading at the time and she read it over. When she was done she looked up at him. So, have you seen any of these other than the blue? Hinata asked. Nope. Just you, the other girls, and Miryu. All of you are blue, Naruto said. Free spirits? Hinata asked. Yep. He nodded. Well, there is mine, which is blue and red, but that's because of Kyuubi's furry, Naruto said. Hey shitface, this fur keeps me warm. Kyuubi barked. Shut up, Kyuubi, Naruto replied almost happily. Naruto didn't want to mention the feather. Well, I'm gonna get to practicing. Thanks again for the water, Hinata, Naruto said, holding her chin up and kissing her. You're welcome, Hinata smiled. Good luck with your training, she said, standing up and walking back inside. Naruto stood up and walked onto the grass, readying himself. Hinata closed the door and walked towards the kitchen. HHHHMMM, she heard. Hinata looked around and then heard a voice, then another. She could make out what they were saying, but she could tell who it was. It was Ino and Sakura. She walked to the source of the noise and found herself outside the hot spring bath room, and the door was open a crack, and she peeked in to see Ino sitting on the ledge of the water with her legs hanging it, but Sakura had her head between Ino's legs, licking her as Ino moaned and combed her fingers through her hair. Hinata's eyes widened. Were they having? What kind of dumb question is that, Hinata? Of course they're having, unless Sakura spilt some food between Ino's legs and is licking it up. Hinata tightened her legs as she felt heat build. She couldn't believe she was getting horny from this. She never considered doing things with another girl. Sakura, Ino moaned, tilting her head back, before pulling Sakura up onto the ledge and getting between her legs in the water, and she started ing on the pink-haired girl's nipples as she rubbed their pussies together. Ino anew, Sakura panted with pleasure. Hinata found her hand trailing up and groping her s through her shirt. Ino, when are we gonna get Naruto in on this? Sakura almost whined, but she was still gasping with pleasure. By the end of the week, I promise, Ino said. Hinata got her interest perked and she stopped rubbing her s and stepped away from the door. Say didn't know what, but some sort of competitive drive kicked in right then and there. I was the first one to love him. I should get to make love to him first, she thought as she planned ahead and walked out back to where Naruto was again. She steeled her will and took a deep breath. Please God, don't let her faint now, and Naruto-kun. She called. Naruto looked at her. Yeah. Something wrong? He asked. And no. Nothing like that, but see, could you come here please? She asked. Okay. Naruto said, deactivating his Shintengen, and walked over to her and she led him inside. What is it? He asked. In private, she said, tugging him into his room, closing and locking the door behind them. What's wrong, Hinata? Naruto asked. Nothing, she said, blushing. It's just, she trailed off as she sat down on the bed with her knees in her chest. Naruto sat next to her. What? He asked. Hinata tightened her face as she took a deep breath and quickly wrapped her arms around his shoulders and placing a deep and passion-filled kiss to his lips, sliding her tongue into his mouth. Naruto took on a short look of shock from the sudden action, but it was welcome, and he quickly returned the kiss, holding the back of her head. Elsewhere, Daemon and his new followers had made a barren wasteland of the village they were in. Tsuruyomi held two civilians up against a wall as she drained their blood from their dying bodies. So glad this town's getting it. I hate this place, she said as she finished draining the two and dropped them, dead on the ground. Well, we're not just trying to make ends meet to survive so we don't have to anyone anymore, other than Daemon of course, Kumoyomi said to her friend. Yeah, that I look forward to, Tsuruyomi said, not to mention with you, you're the only reason I could stand screwing those perverts, because they finished too fast. I always had you after, she said. Of course baby, Kumoyomi said before they kissed. Yes, that is giving me a hard on, but save it for when we're done ladies, Daemon said from out of nowhere. He was to their right in the middle of the street. They giggled. Okay, why? They said. Wow. Lesbian demon women. That's as hot as it gets for me, Daemon said to himself. But aren't they sisters? Narunia asked as he was now standing behind Daemon. Ah. Daemon yelped, turning around and blasted a red lightning bolt behind him, which Narunia ducked under with a terrified look. Damn, Narunia said, shakily. Oh, sorry. Don't sneak up on me like that when I'm thinking to myself, or you'll die. Trust me, 4 people died unintentionally because of that. Daemon said. But no. They're not sisters, only the tiny bit of blood in them is the Harpy sisters' blood. Quote. Narunia shook his head, rising up. It was then that Daemon noticed he was holding an unconscious man in his hand, by the head. Why does his body still have fluids? Daemon asked, perplexed, as he scratched the back of his head. I figured you'd want some too. You haven't drained anybody here, Narunia answered, holding the guy in front of himself. I can hold this weight so easily too, he chuckled. Oh, well, I was going to leave it all for you three, but I'm never one to turn down a generous offer, Daemon said, grabbing the man by the throat and draining his body dry in seconds before dropping him. Rejuvenating, he said. Brown noser. Tsuruyomi chuckled. Narunia growled like a canine at her. Enough. Daemon said calmly. Well, that's it for this town, there's no more people left alive, Narunia said. Yeah, I don't sense the presence of blood, and if I can't, you all can't, Daemon said. Well, after that energy feast, we can be moving on. Where to, baby? Tsuruyomi asked, wrapping her arms around his left one. Yeah, are we gonna go to another village and drain more people to get stronger? Kumoyomi asked, grabbing his other arm. No. We can't constantly be draining the blood, or we'll become dependent on it. Daemon said, if you continuously drain the blood of people, animals, etc., you begin to get weaker if you don't drain constantly, a true hustle. So it's like a drug? Kumoyomi asked. It sure feels like a drug, Tsuruyomi said. In a way, yes, it's like a drug, but as of now, we just eat normal food and drink normal water, and other beverages. We can't survive on blood, we're not vampires, it just grants us that person's level of power, Daemon said. Though a cup of a holy monk's blood goes down divinely, he said, almost rich-like. Naruto and Hinata were still locked in a passionate storm, as Hinata ed on his lower lip, and he ed on her upper one. Hinata broke the kiss for some air before going right back into it. She had her arms tightly around his neck, pulling him as close as possible, and as she laid on her back, pulled him on top of her, as she slid an arm between the two and unzipped his jacket and pushed it off his shoulders. Naruto broke the kiss, Hinata. He said, pulling his arms from the sleeves of the jacket. What's wrong? Don't you want to make love to me? Hinata asked. Of course, it's just, I was making sure you were intending the same thing I thought you were, Naruto said, before kissing her. Naruto got close to her ear. I never thought you'd be the one to initiate this though, he chuckled. Neither did I, Hinata said before rubbing his sides and back, feeling his muscles trough his black t-shirt. She then kissed and ed on his neck. Naruto did the same to Hinata's neck, and he grabbed her through her shirt and began kneading it gently. The one time having the author of the most popular adults manga paid off. Those books can teach a virgin a lot of things. Naruto-kun, Hinata moaned. She wrapped her legs around his waist and began grinding her hips. She could feel her manhood getting harder by the second. This just made her hornier. Naruto pulled off his shirt and then hers, before removing her bra. Hinata was blushing a new kind of blush now. Naruto smiled and rubbed both of her good-sized s. I have to admit these are really nice, he said before licking her left nipple. Do you think so? She asked. Yeah. You're a really beautiful girl, he said. I love you, Naruto, she said. I love you too, he said before ing on her nipples, switching between the two, as he kneaded her soft mounds of flesh, which were more than a handful. This girl had a rack by now. Naruto, it feels really good. I'm getting really hot, Hinata moaned. The bigger the more sensitive, I guess. Naruto chuckled before he pulled her legs from around his waist and unzipped her pants, pulling them and her panties off before pushing her knees up, and he licked the inside of her thighs, slowly moving closer to her. Naruto, Hinata said wantingly. I understand, he said, before licking her up and down with the tip of his tongue. Hinata arched her back and gasped, ah. Naruto licked circles around her, as her grew wetter and wetter. He saw her, letting pre-cum leak out, which he licked up and parted her with his fingers before licking up and down its entire length. Yes. Moto Naruto-kun. She was pumping and rolling her hips, and pleasure rushed up and down her body, tingling her spine, and her gut fluttered with excitement. Naruto rubbed her with his finger as he dug his tongue as deep as possible. Hinata's throbbed in bliss, reacting to every one of his motions. The Hyuga girl gripped the bed covers tightly in her hands, throwing her head back. Naruto, she moaned into the pillow, her finally rippling with an orgasm, as cum poured out and Naruto licked it up as it did. He didn't think a girl's cum would taste this good. That was my first time doing that. I hope it was good, he said. Hinata lay panting on her back, still blushing. I've never felt so good and been so happy before. Naruto smiled. Are we gonna go all the way? Hinata asked. If you want to. Naruto said. I do. I want to make love to you more, Hinata said. Okay. Naruto said before kissing her. He pulled back and unzipped his pants. Hinata pushed his hands out of the way and pulled his pants and boxers down a little, enough to let his rock hard, manhood free. She blushed looking at it, but she licked the top of it. Ah! Naruto gasped. Hinata grabbed it with her hands and started stroking it up and down. She then closed her eyes and took the top into her mouth, swirling her tongue around. Naruto moaned and grabbed her head. Hinata. She used her other hand to pull his pants down more and rub his balls still, and stroking his. My god. Ooh man, you're good Hinata. Hinata inwardly beamed. She was glad she could pleasure him like he pleasured her. Shit. I'm coming, Naruto said, and he released his cum deep into Hinata's mouth and she slowly drank it down savoring the taste, and she pulled away. He then pulled his pants all the way off. Are you ready Hinata? Naruto asked pushing her to her back, and getting above her. Why yes. Please Naruto-kun. Hinata said. Naruto grabbed his and guided it gently into her, sliding as deep as possible before coming to a slight stop. Just a little more Naruto. You're about to take my virginity, Hinata said. It'll hurt won't it? Naruto said. Yes, but I still want to. Hinata said. Just take it slow please, she said. Of course, he said and he kissed her and slid it all the way in breaking the hymen, causing her to cringe in pain. He slowly pulled back and then pushed it back in. Hinata wrapped her arms around his body tightly and squeezed, tears building in her eyes. Are you okay Hinata? Naruto asked. Yes. Please don't stop. I have to deal with it, she said. I know you don't want to hurt me but don't stop. Okay. He said, continuing to pump slowly, and gently. She was so tight it would feel amazing but he couldn't feel pleasure knowing she wasn't at the moment so he just waited. As time passed Naruto felt her tight grip around him loosen and loosen. How are you feeling Hinata? He asked. It still hurts a little but, it's starting to feel good, you can go a little faster now, Hinata said. Naruto picked up his pace a little, and Hinata started to move in sync with him, matching his movements. HHM, Hinata hummed, faster. Naruto started to go faster and a little deeper with each thrust. Hinata's toes started to curl as the pain disappeared and it was filled by the pleasure of Naruto's manhood which filled her. Naruto-kun. Yes. Hinata moaned. Now Naruto was starting to feel good again, knowing she was too. Hinata rolled him over to get on top and she put her hands on his shoulders before rolling and bouncing her hips, riding his. Yes. Hinata moaned. Kami yes. Hinata. Naruto said. Hinata's cum was covering Naruto's manhood as she moaned with bliss, bouncing up and down. Faster Hinata. Naruto said. Hi. She said and began going as fast as her hips could, rolling and bouncing up and down. I'm coming. Naruto said. So am I. Hinata groaned. With that they both came, Hinata's tightening around him. Ah. They panted, and Hinata went limp on top of him. Thank you so much Naruto. She said. I love you. No problem Hinata. I love you too, he said kissing her on the lips. Outside the bedroom door Ino and Sakura stood with their ears to the door, and faces of astonishment, Hinata beat us to him. Sakura said, I know, but she did love him before us, Ino shrugged. Temari and Tenten walked in the front door with some groceries in bags. Hey, we're back, Tenten said. Hey, Sakura greeted. Girls, get this. Naruto and Hinata aren't virgins anymore, Ino said excitingly. Does that mean what I think it means? Tenten asked. Yeah, they had, Sakura said. Darn. I wanted to deflower Naruto, Temari huffed. Oh well. Hinata was loving every second of it too. Well, except for the initial penetration, Ino said. HHHMM, is that good? Tenten asked. I guess. Temari said, inwardly cursing her luck. The bedroom door opened and Naruto and Hinata walked out to see everyone staring at them. So how was it? Ino asked. Did it feel good, Hinata? Naruto and Hinata blushed. Damn, is there not a drop of privacy in this world? Naruto asked. Well, you two were so loud, how did you expect us not to catch on? Sakura said. Yeah, Hinata. Come on, tell us all about, Temari said, tugging her by the arm. Io grabbed her other arm. Yeah, tell us. But Hinata started to protest, but Temari and Ino had already won. They pulled her off to the side. Well, this is awkward, Naruto said. Don't worry about it. I knew you were gonna choose her too, Sakura said. She deserves it. She's been waiting all these years just to even kiss you. Thanks for being so understanding, Naruto said. With this many wives you need to be understanding, Sakura said, walking off. Naruto turned to Tenten. So, do you wanna do something? He asked. I'm not gonna have with you if that's what's you asking, Tenten said. Not yet. No. I'm too tired right now to go again anyways. Do you wanna go get some ramen? He asked. Sure. She shrugged. That sounds good. Okay. I'll buy, Naruto said. They walked over to the door and slipped on their shoes before Naruto held his arm out for her to grab. She smirked. So you're a gentleman? She asked. I can be. Yes, Naruto said. You just gotta give me a chance. Deal, she said, hooking her arm with his, and they exited the house. Hey. I'm not too sure about this. Naruto whimpered in a desperate plea for mercy. Struggling to pull his arms and legs free from the rope that bound him to a large rock near the house. Oh, don't worry. Tenten cooed with a grin, just before she pulled out 2 handfuls of kunai, shuriken, and drop knives, before rearing them back to throw. It's just my daily target practice. Did Neji ever agree to this suicide? Naruto flailed in vain. Just don't move and no harm will befall you, if you're lucky. What? Naruto screamed, just before Tenten threw the weapons through the brisk morning air with high speed. Ah! Naruto yelled as 2 of the weapons lodged into the rock on either side of his head. 2 nearly hit each hand, and 1 went right between his legs to close for any sort of comfort to befall him. Inside the region of Naruto's mind and soul, Kyuubi lay rolled into a ball in his cell, sleeping. When Naruto's screams awoke his slightly, he looked up and slammed his tail on the roof. Shut it up, Kit. I'm trying to sleep. Silence. Kyuubi laid his head back down and dozed back to sleep. Back in the waking world, Tenten pulled out a large scroll and unraveled as she spun around, smearing blood from her finger on them, sending a countless flurry of weapons straight for Naruto. Oh my god. Ah! Naruto screamed, squirming to get free. Kyuubi whipped open his bloodshot eyes with pure fury, and sat up. What the air, you, oh my god. Ah! He roared, seeing the mental image of the cloud of death heading straight for Naruto. As Naruto screamed, a huge wave of red chakra blasted out from the front of his body and deflected all of the weapons, sending them in random directions all over. Whoa! Tenten snapped. That was, wow. Tenten, can you please untie me now? Naruto yelled. Fine. Tenten said as she walked up and cut the rope with a kunai. Thank you, Naruto said, rubbing his sore wrists. None of them would have actually hit you though, Tenten said. I have no guarantee of that. Naruto said. Now, why don't we spar or something? Okay. But I a taijutsu, she said. Improvise, it's what I do. Naruto said. Ready, sure. As I'll ever be. Tenten said. Daemon watched as Narunia, Tsuruyomi, and Kumoyomi drained the blood of a family on a farm in the plains. It was a big family, 3 boys and 2 girls, all in their teens, not to mention the parents. The blood angel walked past the father and noticed something on the ground, a cigarette that dropped from the father's mouth when Narunia drained him. It was only about 25 gone and still smoking, so he picked it up. You shouldn't let things go to waste now, he said, taking a slow drag of the cigarette and inhaling it. He exhaled rings of smoke, and sighed with content, before walking over to his followers, Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi, putting on the girls' clothes. So, shall we be going then? Daemon asked. Sure. We're done here. Narunia said. Where to now, baby? Tsuruyomi asked. We'll search around the continent, gather information, and enjoy ourselves in the pros. Daemon stopped and his face went blank. Babe, Kumoyomi asked. You okay? Can't you sense that? Such great blood, he said. We aren't as acute with it as you, so we have no idea who or what you're talking about, Kumoyomi said. 3 strong people are close. Shift to your demon forms and follow me as fast as you can, Daemon said, forming his blood wings and launching high into the sky, heading east from them. Well, you heard the man, Narunia said, pulling his shirt up, and his body began to change and morph until he was in his werewolf, saber-toothed tiger form. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi looked at each other and nodded before they began to change. Their teeth all became fangs, their arms grew slightly long, and the skin on the arms became an organic armor almost. Their fingers grew sharp claws, their feet grew talons through the sandals, and red feathered wings grew from their backs, as small spikes grew from their knees, elbows, and their shoulders became medium-sized spikes of their own. They each grew horns on their heads. Kumoyomi's pointed down, and Tsuruyomi pointed up, both similar to small bull horns. Narunia dropped to all fours and howled before dashing past them at high speeds, tearing up dirt as he went. The female duo flapped their wings and flew through the air above Narunia. Damn, he's too fast, Narunia barked angrily. We're gonna be far behind him at this rate. He won't actually need our help anyways, Tsuruyomi said. So true, Kumoyomi said. Mahehehahaha. Elsewhere, Neji, Lee and Guy were heading through the edge of the river country from the rain country, heading back to Konoha after a mission to aid some rain ninja. They dashed through the trees at high speed, Neji lagging behind the hyper-competitive twits known as Guy Sensei and Rock Lee. Neji hated the way these two always had to be moving around. They could never slow down for a break or rest. All they care about it go go go. It got annoying, really it did. Tenten was the only reason he could stand being on this team. At least she was sane and straight. But nope, Tenten's been on vacation and is back at Konoha by now. But before Neji could inwardly complain about how his life ed anymore, he sensed a Visio user intent, coming in fat from behind them. Lee, Guy, do you feel that? Neji said. Yeah. Someone strong is following us, Guy said. Stay sharp. Neji turned around and hoped backwards through the branches, activating his Byakugan, and seeing in the distance, a human figure which, through his vision, had wings of chakra, or chakra surround something. The chakra was red and similar to the kind he saw in Naruto. Someone's flying towards fast. Neji said. Take cover, Guy instructed, and hoped out of the trees to the ground and ducked behind trees or bushes. They waited as Neji watched through all the objects around him, the figure come to dead stop from impossible speeds. and descend to the ground beneath the canopy of trees. Don't bother hiding, I know you are there. Daemon said, looking to his right, the direction of their team. Damn. Neji cursed. Guy-sensei, what should we do? Lee asked enthusiastically. Well, I guess we see what he wants. Guy said, standing from behind the bush. Lee did the same, and Neji stepped from behind the tree. Daemon's face went from serious to that of, what the? Okay, I thought I sensed someone strong, but all I found is a traveling sideshow, of two clowns and a freak with bulging, blood vein-pumped eyes, he said. Team Guy nearly hit the floor from the comment, we are not a sideshow. Lee said, we are shinobi. Like I give a what you call yourselves. Daemon exasperated, taking a drag of his cigarette which he held in his lips. You wear green tights with bushy eyebrows and ridiculous bowl haircuts. You look like clowns to me. Guy-sensei, can I show him what a shinobi is? Lee asked. I don't know, is it a fight you're looking for, sir? Guy asked. Yes, but I feel if I attack freaks I'll feel guilty about it later, Daemon said, pointing behind himself with a shrug. You'd do wise not to underestimate us. Neji said. You'd do wise not to underestimate me, my boy. Daemon said. I have powers you'd only dream of obtaining. Then why don't you prove it? Neji asked, entering his stance. So the sideshow freak wants to fight. Daemon said. So do those eyes just look weird or do they do something? You'll find out. Neji said, dashing in at Daemon. Naruto and Tenten were throwing blow for blow. Naruto had the upper hand, pushing her back towards a tree and her back hit it and he threw a swift punch to her gut and she kicked at him and he jumped back. Tenten dashed at Naruto, who ran at her, but the kunoichi had other things in mind. She pulled out two kunai connect with a thin metal wire at their loops and threw them at the ground in Naruto's direct path, causing his foot to trip on the wire and he hit the ground and slid. In doing so knocked Tenten off her feet and she collapsed on top of him. Sakura walked out of the house and looked at two in their tangled mess, which in her angle looked like they were doing a 69. Sakura blushed. Goddammit. She barked. Naruto lifted his dizzy head and looked at Sakura. Tenten did the same. What? They asked in unison. What do you mean? What? Sakura yelled. You two've had something going on before this, haven't you? What the hell are you talking about? Tenten stopped when she looked down and noticed she was laying on top of Naruto, her head practically between his legs. She blushed furiously and hopped to her feet in an instant. We didn't do anything, I swear it. She said frantically. HMPF. Sakura huffed. Sure. I still say you probably won't be staying anyways. Why's that? Tenten snapped. Don't you have a thing or that stuck-up prick Neji? Sakura asked. He's not emotional enough, but I'm still not sure about this decision yet, Tenten said. Don't get angry, Sakura-chan. I still love you and always will. Naruto grinned. Neji's back slammed into a tree and he looked at the Blood Angel, who stared with twisted smile, still with his hands in his pockets. Okay Lee, let's get in this, Guy said and Lee nodded. The both dashed at Daemon, and Guy threw a punch that almost collided with Daemon's face but centimeters away. He disappeared in a blur and reappeared away from them, still with his hands in his pockets, and his cigarette in his lips, which he took a drag of. You almost got me there. Pretty fast. The Blood Angel said. Lee appeared to Daemon's left and swipe-kicked at him but he just flapped his wings and floated into the air. I'm seriously questioning whether or not I have the dishonor to two retards, he said calmly, scratching the back of his head. What do you want from us? Neji barked. Me. I'm here. For blood, Daemon said. Just then Neji noticed a blur to his left with the Byakugan and just as he turned to see Narunia in his demon form was already looming in the air next to him, rearing his claw back before swiping it in Neji's face, launching him through the greenery of the forest, and Narunia went off after him. Neji. Lee called. Lee. Stay focused. Guy said. Why yes sensei. Lee said. Just then 2 red lightning bolts hit the ground near Lee and Guy and they jumped apart to avoid being hit and they looked up to see Kumoyomi and Tsuruyomi. What's going on? Guy said before getting ready to jump as the duo of girls, when just then streams of blood wrapped around his wrists, ankles, and torso, before lifting him off the ground and pulling him back. Guy-sensei. Lee shouted turning to see Daemon with his hand extended towards Guy, and streams of blood coming from all 5 fingers. I'll take this one, you two can fight the miniature version. Daemon said, before swinging Guy through 2 trees. Okay. Tsuruyomi said, holding out her hand towards Lee, before blasting a lightning bolt out at him which he jumped back to avoid. Okay. Obviously we need to fight harder, Lee said before crouching down and removing his ankle weights, dropping them with thunderous booms. Lee dashed at Daemon to aid his sensei, when Kumoyomi appeared in front of him and extended her wings and blasted multiple beam-like bursts of red chakra at him. Lee swerved and dashed to the sides barely avoiding the onslaught when Tsuruyomi appeared in his path and swiped her large clawed hand at him when he jumped back on a dime watching a few strands of his hair fall to the ground. The taijutsu specialist looked up at the duo and grit his teeth, RRRRR. Guy dashed at Daemon at blinding speeds, disappeared and reappeared behind him, slamming a punch into his back, causing him to fly through a couple of trees. Guy saw a blast of red lightning shoot from Daemon's position from behind the brush, and he rolled to his right to avoid the blast. Neji lifted himself from the ground and looked at Narunia, who slowly paced towards him. What do you want? Why us? He asked. Because you 3 have excellent power, we want it. Narunia said. Shall we begin? Neji entered his stance. I have to regroup with Guy and Lee, or we're probably gonna die here. Neji said activating his Byakugan again. Naruto, Tenten, Temari, Hinata, Sakura and Ino were sitting inside the house drinking tea and relaxing. Sakura had her head leaning on Naruto's shoulder. As they sat on the couch, Hinata sat on the other side of him. So, I'm bored. How do you propose we solve this? Temari said. Naruto said scratching his chin. We could have an orgy. Ino chuckled. Everyone whipped their heads to her. 1 or 2 looks of approval and 1 or 2 of, what the, it was a joke, she said. Everyone turned away. Well, I think I'ma go talk to Granny about the land of the waves and to check something she has. Anyone wanna come with? Naruto said. I'll go. Tenten said. I'll go too. Sakura answered. What about you, Hinata? Temari. Ino. He asked. I wanna clean up the house. Hinata said. Temari said she'd give me a hand. Yep. Temari nodded. And I'm going to work in the garden in a minute, Ino said. Okay. Well, have fun with that then. Naruto chuckled, and him and the 2 other girls went to the door, slipped on their shoes and exited the house. Once they arrived at the central building, they went inside and up to the top floor. They knocked on Tsunade's door. Come in, Tsunade called. They opened the door and walked in. Oh, well, this is a welcome visit. Unless this about the 2 of you saying you're not staying with Naruto, Tsunade said. Well, I'm never gonna leave, Sakura said. And I'm still in the process of building a relationship if any with him, Tenten said. Naruto glared at her. It might work if you stop strapping me to a rock and throwing thousands of deadly weapons at me. I'm sorry, okay. I was just practice, Tenten said. Sakura began to giggle. I'm just teasing you, Naruto said, sticking his tongue out at Tenten. She blushed. So if there's no bad news, what's up? Tsunade asked. Do you think we could leave tonight for the land of waves? Naruto asked. That's fine. Today's the last day of Operation Matchmaking anyways, Tsunade said. Just gather everything you'll need. I've already sent a letter to Tazuna, someone who they've met before, a few days back, and he replied this morning. he'd gladly let you stay with him as long as you need. Oh, can I show them that book? Naruto asked. The book? Yeah. Here, Tsunade said, opening her desk drawer and pulling out the book and handing it to him. Thanks. Now get a load of this, ladies. This is some crazy shit, Naruto said, opening it as they looked over his shoulder to see the words. Neji slammed his palm into the forearm of Narunia, who whipped his arm, pushing Neji back. Damn it, he cursed. Give up, boy. You can't beat a demon by yourself, Narunia said before blue fire gathered in his mouth, frozen fire. He roared and blasted out the azure blaze, which Neji gasped at before spinning around. Rotation, the blue flames rippled off of the dome of chakra, and froze the trees behind him in a layer of ice. Ha! Impressive, Narunia said before dashing on all fours at Neji, who just stopped his rotation, and Narunia's shoulder speared him in the gut, sending him into a thick tree, lodging him in its trunk. Arg. Neji coughed up blood. Narunia grew a sinister grin. Did that hurt? I apologize, he mocked. RRRR. Neji looked up at him, then pulled himself from the tree and landed on his feet, ready to fight more. Guess you're more resilient than I gave you credit for, boy, Narunia said, before dashing back at him. Guy and Daemon exchanged blow for blow, in a storm of fists and kicks as they jumped from tree to tree. So despite your ridiculous looks, you can actually fight, and almost on par with me, Daemon grinned, but taijutsu isn't my specialty, it's blood, he shouted before blasting out a high-pressure surge of blood from his right hand that pushed Guy through some trees and into the ground. Daemon held his palm to the sky and thin streams of blood came from his fingers and palm before he swung his arm down like you would a sword, and the blood instantly became just that. A sword, a dark red one-edged sword, its shape similar to a bat wing, no fine details, just the shape. Now, perish mortal, the blood angel roared. Ketsukiri. 1. He slashed the sword upwards vertically and sent out a red crescent blade of energy that sliced through the air with such force and speed it left a pocket behind it that had now air in it. Guy saw this and dived to the side as the blade collided with the ground and created a small explosion, more like a cloud of dust from its impact. Maheheheheheheheh. Dance, sideshow clown, dance. Ketsukiri, Daemon shouted before slashing through the air with the sword over and over, sending countless energy crescents at Guy, who began diving, rolling, jumping, ducking, all of it to get away from the storm of energy blade, which cut through the trees on their way to him. Laughing evilly the entire onslaught, Kumoyomi looked up at Daemon. Mahehe, he looks like he's having fun, she said. I know I am, Tsuruyomi said, blasting red lightning from her hands at Lee, who dashed around to avoid it. Kumoyomi dashed in at Lee and swiped her hand backwards, hitting him in the chest, sending him rolling back. He regained himself and looked at them. I can't beat them like this. Forgive me, Guy-sensei, he thought, before crossing his forearms in front of himself, and his chakra began rising exponentially. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi looked at each other and raised their eyebrows, then turned back to him. Kaiman, Lee shouted, and pressure from the chakra rippled out. Impressive, Kumoyomi said. You'll see, impressive, Lee said and disappeared. With the gates I can defeat you, his voice echoed. The two demon females looked around. When out of nowhere Lee appeared in front of Tsuruyomi and delivered a lightning-quick upward kick to her chin, launching her in the air, just before dropping low and spinning around, trip-kicking Kumoyomi, knocking her down. Lee then launched into the air and positioned himself behind Tsuruyomi. Omid Renge, he shouted, and his bandages wrapped tightly around her body, as he arched them over and dived to the ground, spinning at high speeds head first. The speed build-up was so great the air itself began to spin with them, and Lee slammed her head into the ground with a huge crash, and released his bandages to jump away before he hit the ground too. Lee landed and looked at the cloud of smoke, panting. just before Kumoyomi grabbed his head with her demon claw, lifting him off the ground and slamming him face first. Guy was hit in the right shoulder by the edge of one of the blades Daemon was sending at him. It cut about an inch deep. He could feel Lee's presence grow stronger, but because of the terrain, couldn't see him. The forest was too dense in that direction. Ino walked inside from the backyard and pulled of her gloves, tossing them on the shelf next to the door. Temari and Hinata were just finishing the last 2 plates in the kitchen and they put them in the cabinets. You girls done? Ino asked. Yeah, now we are, Temari said. What do you wanna do? Hinata asked, walking into the living room, and sitting on the couch. I don't know, it's kind of dull at the moment. Temari said, crossing his arms. Ino got an idea and she walked up to Temari and whispered in her ear, okay. I'm listening, Temari whispered. New, but I'll do it, Temari nodded. You guys think of something? Hinata asked, looking over the back of the couch. Yeah, Ino said, and she walked around to the front while Temari came up and leaned against the back of the couch. Ino got on her knees in front of Hinata. Ino? She asked quizzically. Don't worry, we'll end up doing this eventually anyways. Temari said, before reaching over the back of the couch and gripping Hinata's S, before kneading them and rolling them. Hinata blushed and gasped a moan. What are you doing? She asked. Ino parted Hinata's legs and unzipped her pants, pulling them off of her hips with her panties. Stop. Hinata gasped. She said, stop, but her body didn't resist, like at all. SSHH. You'll enjoy this, we're both gonna work on you, Ino said, and she started rubbing circles around her, coaxing a pleasure-filled moan from the lavender-haired girl. Narunia swiped his claws at Neji, who ducked under and slammed a palm into his chin before rearing his other palm back. Hake Kusho too, he said, and he blasted out an invisible burst of chakra and wind from the thrust of his palm, that sent Narunia into a large tree. The demon didn't wait long to recover and he was back on Neji in a brutal barrage of beastly attacks, which Neji struggled to avoid, each time barely missing them. Claw marks and slight cuts across his body were evidence of this. His chakra is too strong to stop the flow by hitting his tenketsu, Neji thought. This is ridiculous, he said. You think so? I personally think it's good fight. I'm enjoying this thoroughly, Narunia said before jumping into the air. Demon howl, he yelled, and he blasted red and blue chakra from his mouth that impacted the ground at Neji's feet, but he jumped in time not to be disintegrated. The blast wave sent Neji sliding roughly against the ground and he flipped to his feet, panting heavily. Narunia disappeared in midair and reappeared to Neji's right before swiping upward with his claw. The claw tore through Neji's body, ripping it to shreds, but those shreds disappeared in clouds of smoke. Hake Hayakunijuahachisho. 3. Neji's voice came out and Narunia turned around to see him. Narunia was within Neji's divination field, and instantly began hisso as he called out, 2, 4, 8, 16, matching each number with that number of strikes in a flurry, 32. 64. 128. With that, Neji slammed one final palm into Narunia's chest, sending him flying through the dense forest. Neji dropped to one knee and used the Byakugan to look through the forest for his comrades. Lee was fighting off the 2 female demons and their relentless barrage of lightning and taijutsu. By now he had the 3rd gate activated and was fighting for his life. He used Leaf Whirlwind and knocked them both away, before going to release another gate. Kumoyomi recovered and flew back at him. We won't give the time to change, she said. Tsuruyomi dashed in from the other side, blasting lightning at the ground around him, knocking him to his back. Kumoyomi hovered above Lee and reared her arms above her head and slammed them down on him. Lee caught the attack and struggled to hold it off. Damn this kid. He's stronger than he should be. Kumoyomi gnarled, struggling to smash him. Tsuruyomi flew above them and extended her wings all the way out, and they released dozens of razor-sharp feathers glowing with red lightning. Kumoyomi flapped her wings and strafed to her left as the feathers stuck into the ground around Lee and two stuck in his body, one in his right thigh, and the other in his abdomen. Lee hissed with pain, and he hopped to his feet ignoring the pain and started to run away, but lightning extended from all the feathers to connect with the other feathers, like chains, and he stopped in his tracks paralyzed by the red electricity. Lee, Neji said, getting up, and he was about to dash after him when Naruto appeared next to him and blindsided him with a fist to the face. "You haven't finished me yet," Naruto said. "Rrrrrrrrrr." Neji growled. He looked and saw Guy through the forest avoiding Daemon's attacks with the sword. "Pay attention to your fight, boy," Naruto said, dashing in for another attack. Guy crossed his forearms above his head, stopping Daemon's attack at the wrist, but Daemon then slammed his fist into Guy's gut, lifting him off his feet, before quickly spinning around and cleaving across his chest, sending him flipping into a tree. Blood poured from Guy's wound and he looked at Daemon. "Bakemuno, poor," he said. "You're not even trying, are you?" "Oh, I'm trying. Fairly hard actually. You're not a pushover, I give you that," Daemon said. "Who are you and why attack us?" Guy asked. "I guess I should explain to you why you're going to die in the name of Yorer. It is only fair," Daemon said. "I am the Blood Angel." Daemon. He bowed. "Blood Angel? What?" Guy asked in confusion, standing up. "The envoy of Oblivion," he said, "and your Undertaker." Just then blood pikes pierced through Guy's chest. From his back, he hacked up blood. What? He struggled to turn his head to see that the blood spears shot from his own puddle of blood, from his wound. "When you fight me, not even your own blood is safe," Daemon grinned, before walking up to Guy and grabbing his throat. "Feel honored, you're the strongest I've yet to absorb." Guy choked and coughed, as Daemon pulled the blood from his body through the neck. The taijutsu master grabbed the Blood Angel's arm and struggled to pull it off, but his muscles were already disappearing by the speed he drained his body. Guy reared a fist back and threw it at Daemon's face. It connected, but it was too weak to even move the flesh of his face. Guy's body withered and he eventually went limp. Not a drop of moisture left in his dead body. Neji saw this through the trees and how all the chakra was pulled from his leader's body. "Guy!" he yelled, just before he got back-handed in the chest by Naruto, and sent rolling. Sakura, Naruto and Tenten were walking back to the house. "That book was creepy," Tenten said. "Agreed," Sakura said. "I get a bad vibe from it." "We don't have to worry, it's just a legend," Naruto said, though he wasn't too sure of his own words. They walked up to the door and went inside, kicking off their shoes. They walked into the living room to see Temari laying on her back, with Ino grinding their pussies together, and Hinata was straddled over Temari's head as the sand kunoichi licked her. "What the hell?" Tenten yelled. They finally noticed the other three, and Ino, Temari, and Hinata looked to see them. Hinata shrieked with embarrassment and covered herself up, grabbing her clothes and frantically putting them on. "Wow, Ino, you even spread it to them," Sakura said. Haha. Yeah. Ino chuckled with a grin. "Wow, this just gets odder and odder," Tenten said, looking at Naruto, and she then noticed a bulge in his pants. She blushed furiously and looked away. Then she started getting hot between the legs herself just thinking about him being like that. "Okay, horny people, get dressed and get your stuff ready. We're all going to the land of the wave with Naruto for his training," Sakura said. "Oh, okay then," Temari said as she started putting on her clothes along with Ino. Hinata was blushing like she was on fire or something. The boy she loves just saw her having with two other girls. She wasn't even finished. "Wait a minute, where did that one come from?" Lee continued to fend off the flurry of the two demon females, and just as they came in for another strike, "Stop!" Daemon yelled. They stopped in their tracks and jumped back. "Why?" They asked angrily. Daemon held up Guy's lifeless withered body by the head. Sensei. Lee shouted. Your sensei is dead. Daemon said. Why yo? Lee roared and he blasted up towards Daemon at sonic speeds that destroyed the ground he jumped from. Just as Lee was about to throw a punch, Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi grabbed his legs and arms, stopping him dead in his tracks. Hold it. Gaki, 5, Kumoyomi said. You're our fight. Tsuruyomi said. They struggled to keep him held back. He was viciously trying to get free to the guy. You'll pay. Lee roared with intent. I think not. Daemon said, before backhanding him across the face. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi threw him back down to the hard ground like a bullet. Cracks riddled the ground. Neji was thrown against a tree back first with a thud, and Naruto rammed his forearm into his upper chest, pinning him there. You're good kid, but I think I'll end it here. The demon beast said, rearing his claws back ready to stab him, and Neji moved to the side a little and it jabbed into his left shoulder above the collarbone. Elsewhere Tenten gasped and Ino and Sakura, who were in the living room with her packing their stuff, looked at her. You okay? Ino asked. I don't know but feel like something bad is happening. Something really bad, she said, shaking. Naruto held his claws in Neji's shoulder, and he reared his left arm back, balling his hand into a fist, and he threw it at the Hyuga prodigy. Neji crossed his arms and blocked the attack. Naruto grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the tree and spun around before throwing him through the dense brush. Damn it. I overdid it. Now he's gonna be dead and his blood is useless then. Naruto sighed. Just then he heard a loud bang of thunder, and he turned to the direction of Kumoyomi and Tsuruyomi's fight with Lee. Then a red lightning bolt blasted Lee through the trees into the ground near him. The demon females flew in, came down on him, pinning his arms down, and they grabbed his neck and started draining the blood from his body. He kicked and flailed to get free. Neji rose his head from the debris of the bushes and looked with his Kekkei Genkai to see Lee, and he saw all the chakra quickly being pulled from his body. RRGH, damn it, move body, move. He grunted trying to get to his feet, but it was too late. Lee's body went limp and the chakra was gone from his body. Son of a bitch. Neji slammed his fist into the tree next to him. I have to retreat and inform Konoha, he said before turning and mustering every bit of strength in his battered and beaten body, his wounds still dripping blood, and ran towards the hidden leaf village. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi stood up. Well, he's dead. Tough little bastard, Kumoyomi said, as they reverted back to normal. I need to go find my fight. I hope I didn't overkill him, Naruto said before dashing in the direction of his opponent. Neji dashed through the trees and pulled out a bag of green plant-like dust, and he spread it as he went through the trees. He created a shadow clone, something he picked up upon becoming a Junin, and he let it go straight with some of the plant shreds, while he branched off to the left heading directly towards Konoha. Both of them spreading the shreds as they went. Naruto landed on a tree branch and sniffed around, then his face took a look of pure shock. The scent is gone. He snapped before sniffing the bran again, his nose pulling in certain shreds. He batted at his nose and snorted out of to relieve the irritant. Ah, god damn it, it's ing with my nose, he growled. I can't smell anything. As Neji dashed, he took his shirt off and tightly wrapped it around his left shoulder's wound. The scent breaker won't help if they can see my blood, he said to himself, creating another clone, who was set to look like he was bleeding, and he let the fake blood drop as he branched off in a sharp left turn. Neji continued towards the village, struggling to stay conscious. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi floated over to Naruto. What's wrong, puppy? Did you lose your target? Tsuruyomi said in a mock baby voice. You shouldn't have knocked him out of your sights, foolish mutt, Kumoyomi said. Wow, even whores can grow arrogant with power, Naruto said, changing back to his human form. Night was falling over Konoha, and Naruto and the girls were standing at the front gate, Tsunade was in front of them. Well, good luck on your training. Get strong, Naruto. Oh, and take care of him, ladies. He is a man. Men can't survive without us, Tsunade chuckled. I can survive plenty well on my own. Naruto said. Just go. Tsunade chuckled. Whatever, Ba-chan. Naruto said. Well, let's go, he said, and all of them turned and exited the gates. Shizune appeared next to Tsunade. Are you sure you should send them without a Junin? She asked. Yes. The Junin would get in the way of their bonding. They are all very capable ninja. They'll be fine, Tsunade said, and she turned to head back to the central building. As Naruto and the others went, they got into the dense forest. They walked for about 15 minutes when they all heard a rustling and they stopped in their tracks and readied themselves. You all heard that, right? Naruto asked. Yeah, Hinata said. All the others nodded. Then Neji stumbled through the bushes and hit the ground, in the middle of the path. Oh my god, Neji! Tenten shrieked. Neji-kun! Hinata shrilled, cupping her hands over her mouth, before the two of them ran over to him. What the hell? Naruto said, running up as well. The others followed. Neji, what happened to you? Where's Lee and Guy-sensei? Tenten said, turning him over and holding his upper body in her lap. We were attacked by demons. They outnumbered us by 1, and separated us. Neji panted. Where are Lee and Sensei? Tenten asked. Neji couldn't look her in the eyes and turned away. And no. They can't be. They're alive, they're too good to die, Tenten said, tears starting to build in her eyes. I saw them die with my Byakugan. The blood, the chakra, all of it pulled from their bodies, Neji said. We need to get you to hospital fast, Neji. Hinata said frantically. Without hesitation, the females and Naruto picked Neji up and quickly carried his dying form to the village. Zaikin. A man in a black trench coat yelled furiously, as he extended his huge angel wings of blood, his short black and red hair flapping around in the chaotic blood-red storm that brewed above in the skies. Stop this, Jin. The black-haired man in a gray long-sleeve shirt, with a black vest over it, yelled over the storm's wind. No, I am not Jin anymore. I am Ketsuro, the Blood Angel, now and forever. And I am tired of living an underappreciated existence. Today you die, big brother. The other shouted as lightning struck the plateau, the Blood Angel creating a sword from blood that came from his hand. I don't want to fight, Jin. Stop this madness while you're still yourself. You came across the blood of demons, and lusting for power you let it consume you, until you became the hateful demon you are today. Zeiken shouted, drawing a large double-edged broadsword from his back. I am not just any demon. I am the demon god. Ketsuro roared, flapping his wings and launching out at Zeiken, who brought his blade up. Damn it! Your soul is lost. Zeiken shouted, clashing blades with his little brother, and lightning was drawn to their metal and hit right where their blades met each other, in a huge flash. Daemon sat up from the ground and put his hand over his face with a look of fear and anger, panting, cursed nightmares, they still don't cease, and they want until I finish my goal, he thought before turning to his right, seeing Kumoyomi sleeping soundly next to him, Tsuruyomi on the other side. It was still night time. What bothers you, my lord? Narunia asked from a tree, which he was in, sitting on a large branch and leaning his back to the trunk. Huh, Daemon said, turning to see Narunia above him, then he looked forward and growled, memories. Naruto, Tenten, Hinata, Temari, and Ino were standing in the lobby of the hospital. Tenten sat in a chair next to a door, which Sakura walked out of, and Hinata looked at the pink-haired Kunoichi. He'll be alright, won't he? She asked frantically. Yeah. He's not in anger of dying anymore. He lost a lot of blood. It's a miracle he made it back as far as he did, and he was lucky we found him, Sakura said. Tenten sighed with relief. So did Hinata. What happened is what I wanna know, Naruto said angrily. Tsunade walked out of the same door and looked at the group. Don't worry about this whole thing. Neji's okay, and we won't be able to find anything out until he regains consciousness, so you all should keep your appointment in the land of the waves, she said. But Gran, no buts Naruto, Tsunade said firmly, you need to learn your bloodline, and bond more with these girls. There's nothing more you can do here, so just go, Tsunade said, we'll get to the bottom of this. If you say it's alright. Naruto said, somewhat reluctantly. Yeah. Let's just go. She's right, we can't do anything more, Ino said. Alright. The others said in unison and they grabbed their backpacks and exited the hospital room. Tsunade looked up and sighed. Please God, if you really exist, don't let this happen, not if it's what I think it is. So, should we move on to the water country now? Narunia asked standing next to Daemon, on the edge of a cliff. Yeah. We've been in the rain and wind up until now. Wave is next, then the lightning, and then earth, and then the strongest. Konoha, Daemon said. Explain to me why you're going to all the countries, Narunia said. Simple. To learn more about this world, its people, its strengths, its weaknesses. And to gather as much power for the four of us as possible before striking the strongest country and taking over, Daemon said. Did you plan all of this before you went into hibernation? Narunia asked. Yes. Question. Why did you go into hibernation, Master? Narunia asked. Because in my travels to find my father's power, I stumbled across a cave high in a mountain top that had a shrine in it, which at the sacrifice of 4 other people's blood, I could be sealed into the stone pedestal, then sleep for 10-15 years. This process has made me immortal, Daemon said. Narunia's eyes widened. You're immortal? He snapped. I can no longer die. Daemon grinned. Nothing can stop me now. So you could get cleaved in half and be totally okay? Narunia asked. Well, I'm pretty sure it would hurt like a cold hell to Satan, but I would live, yes. Daemon said. You could blow me to tiny pieces and not me. If you could blow me to tiny pieces in the first place, maheheheheha, he chuckled. I see. Well, I guess I should wake the other two. Narunia said, turning to the sleeping females, and he walked up to Tem, and kicked them slightly. Get up, women, he said, crossing his arms. Tsuruyomi sat up. Jackass, don't you have any respect for women? She growled. Seriously, Mutt-face, Kumoyomi said. Oh, I hold women in high regards, but you see, the thing is. Narunia trailed off before looking around his surrounds, then back to them. I don't see any women. I only see 2 power-crazy demon whores who only want a heart in them. Kumoyomi huffed. Lord Daemon, are you gonna let him treat us lick? She stopped when she saw Daemon suppressing a laugh and cupping a hand over his mouth. I'm sorry, that was mahehe actually a good one. Daemon said through laughs. Though I can't blame them, Daemon's everything a woman could want, he said in the third person. Men. The females huffed angrily in unison. Oh, don't let that get to you girls. Kaaww. An eagle screeched as it flew in and started clawing Daemon's face with its talons, shrieking and shrilling. Ah, get this thing off of me. Daemon yelled as the bird ripped at his face. He flailed and screamed before punching it, knocking it dead to the ground. Daemon was panting, with dozens of deep cuts all over his face, which slowly began to close themselves. That was random, he said. Seriously, Narunia said, turning towards his master. Just then the females both tackled him to the ground. We'll take you to talk shit, Mutt-face, Tsuruyomi yelled. As they became a ball rolling around and attacking each other, Daemon began to laugh and stumble backwards from it, then bumped into a tree, causing a beehive to fall on his head. Narunia transformed to his demon form and threw women off of himself. Back off, or I'll rip your faces clean from your skulls. Narunia's voice dripped with death and anger. Daemon wants us to move out, he said, changing back to normal. Really? Where to, baby? Kumoyomi asked, turning to Daemon only to see him covered in honey, with a swarm of bees attacking him. He stumbled over and hit the ground, and fire ants marched up and onto him, beginning to bite him everywhere on his body. Ah, get them off of me! Daemon yelled, flailing around. Stop, drop, and roll, boss. Narunia shouted. That's for fire, you idiot. Tsuruyomi said. Daemon stopped flailing and his body started to glow red. In doing so, one by one all the insects attacking exploded in tiny fireballs. Daemon stood up and started to brush the honey off of himself. Damn goo-wielding insects, he said before eating some honey off the tip of his finger. Least it's honey. Just then he saw a badger come out from the bushes and it came up and sniffed at his feet. Oh well, do you smell the honey, boy? Daemon asked, kneeling down next to it, and letting it lick his hand clean, but just then it growled and hissed before lunging at his throat, latching on with its teeth. Aarrgghh. Daemon chocked before pulling it off his throat with brute force, and then ripping the animal in half. What the hell was that all about? Daemon yelled. Just then, a bear walked from the bushes. Wow, you're joking, right? Daemon said. Just then the bear roared and charged straight at Daemon. MWAAAAAAAAAHHHH. Daemon screamed as it lunged at him, and tackled him over the edge of the cliff. Narunia, Tsuruyomi, and Kumoyomi turned to each other and then stared blankly at the spot of the cliff their master went over. Naruto and the 5 others were making good time. They moved through the trees quickly and with ease, working their way to the land of waves. Naruto turned around and looked at Hinata and Tenten. They knew him the best, so our blonde lovable idiot figured they were probably not in the greatest off moods. Hopefully when they got to the land of waves, he could do something to cheer her up. Tenten was part of that team, and half of the team's gone overnight. She felt the worst, that much is obvious. Their trip only took a day and a half to get to the Naruto bridge. They walked along the path up to the bridge. They looked ahead and couldn't see anyone in the slight fog. A figure dashed through the tree tops behind them, and they turned around, and saw nothing. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He wasn't in the mood for another attack, especially another one in the land of waves. He drew a kunai and readied himself. Naruto? Sakura asked nervously. Shish. Just then from the trees to his right flew a kunai, and he deflected it. Then he saw a figure jump from the trees towards. He couldn't make out who it was through the fog. The figure grew closer and closer. Just then, Inari. Tizuna's voice echoed out. Where are you? The figure flinched in mid-air and its course was altered to hit the ground in front of Naruto a few feet. Naruto's face dropped at what he saw. Ouch, ouch, ouch. A much older Inari grunted, sitting up his knees, and he looked up at Naruto. Hey. He greeted with a grin. Inari. Naruto snapped. My god. Don't attack me like that. I almost did you, he said. Haha, sorry. I was just trying to show how strong I've gotten, Inari said. Well, you're good at sneaking, Ino said. So are these your girlfriends? Inari teased. Naruto blushed slightly. Why, yes and no. I'm not sure about all of them. Wow, you're so lucky. They're really pretty, Inari said, looking at them, smiling. Aaww, he's so kawaii, Temari said. Inari, Tizuna called, coming through the fog, and seeing them. There you are, he said. Naruto. How's it been? He asked. Great. Except for one thing. Naruto said. Well, you can tell me all about it when we get to my place. Follow me, I have a carriage, and some horses to make crossing the bridge easier, Tizuna said. Cool. Naruto said, and they all followed Tizuna onto the bridge some of the way until they came to the carriage and horses. Just hop on in, Tizuna said, getting on the front seat and grabbing the reins. Inari climbed in the back with the others and closed the door. So, how did you get something like this? Naruto asked. Well, I had to walk the bridge carrying my trade supplies, and eventually got the money to buy this and 2 horses. It makes it so much easier, Tazuna said through the window, before he whipped HTE reins and the horses started running, picking up speed. So, what were doing attacking me again? Naruto asked Inari. Well, ever since you left, I've been training to get strong like you and my dad, so I can protect the people of my home, but I can only teach myself so much, and I was wondering, do you think maybe I could go back to Konoha with you, learn some stuff there on how to be a ninja? Inari asked. That's fine with me, I guess, but you have to clear that with her grandfather and your mother, Naruto said. We both already said he could. Tazuna said. Every day he practices, but he's always saying he wants to go to Konoha and train to be a shinobi so he could come back here and protect the bridge and people here. Oh. Well, okay 10. But where'd you get kunai? Naruto asked. My grandpa trades everything, so I've gotten my hands on a few different ninja tools to practice with. You're careful though, right? Things like that aren't toys, Sakura said. I know. I had to prove I could be responsible with them first, Inari said. How old are you now? Naruto asked. 12, Inari answered. Is it too late to start? No. It's never too late to become a ninja, Temari said. I'll put in a word to the Hokage so you won't have to do the academy with people younger than you. I could train you what you haven't figured out and then see if I can get you to take the exams, Naruto said. Hell, we all could probably teach you something, Ino said. Really? Would you? Inari asked energetically. Sure. Just be patient, Sakura said, chuckling. I could do some of that, I guess, Tenten said. I need something to take my mind off of what happened. I'll help too. Hinata smiled through her obvious discomfort. Granted, she didn't have the greatest relationship with her cousin, but that's still her own blood. Yada. Inari cheered. After a 10-minute travel, they came to the other end of the bridge, and crossed onto soft dirt and ground. We'll be there in a minute, Tazuna said, as the horses took a left at a fork and worked their way up a slight hill and went around a turn, coming to a stop. They all piled out of the carriage and looked at the large house. Wow, you live here now? Sakura asked. Yep. Trading makes good money, Tazuna said. Come on in. He led them through the front door and walked into the house. He led them to the kitchen where Tsunami was washing dishes. Mom, we're back, Inari called. Tsunami turned around and saw the group. Oh, welcome. How was your trip? She asked. Good. How have you been? Naruto asked. Great. Ever since the bridge's completion, the land of waves is rich again, all thanks to you, Sakura, your sensei and Sasuke, Tsunami said. Well, Sasuke's not around anymore, Naruto said. Did he die? Tsunami asked. No. But he betrayed us, Naruto said. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Here, sit down. I'll make some tea and we can catch up, Tsunami said. Thanks, Naruto said. Him and the girls took a seat at the kitchen table. Tazuna and Inari pulled up 2 other chairs and sat down. Daemon, Narunia, Tsuruyomi, and Kumoyomi sat in a ferry as it crossed the sea into the water country. Other people moving about and going about their day, waiting to reach land. Daemon took a sip off some wine and laid back in his chair, enjoying the sun, with his jacket and shirt off. Tsuruyomi and Kumoyomi were in bikinis, and Narunia was in his normal clothes sitting against the rail of the boat. You can only enjoy this because we came in fall. If it were winter, which it will be in a month or 2, we'd be knee-deep in snow, he said. Water country that bad? Daemon said. Still nothing we can't handle. Yeah. So just stop talking so much and have fun, Kumoyomi said. I talk to ask questions. Questioning is the first part of gaining knowledge. In simple terms you could understand, I want to know about this whole deal. I talk to expand that knowledge to others, not to mention I've been in the water country during winter. It's okay. I'm just enjoying the sun while it's out, Daemon said, along with the wine and the glorious view of you two in bikinis, he said looking at the females of their group. Wow, you've been through a lot, Tsunami said, after a 2-hour summary of everything Naruto's gone through since he left the wave. Yeah, hell in a ham basket, then back again, Naruto said. Well, I guess I'll make some food for us all, Tsunami said. Please, we're starving, Ino said. Oh no, could I help you? I enjoy cooking, Hinata said. Yes, let her, she's a great cook. Temari said. Haha, okay. Tsunami said. Come on, let's make something good, she said. Okay. Hinata smiled and she stood up. Here, I'll show you your rooms, Tazuna said, butting down his beer and getting up. They followed him to the second floor, and opened a door. I'm going to go out on a limb and presume you want to stay in the same room. He asked. Sure, Sakura said. Fine with me, Naruto replied. The others nodded and he showed them the room. It was pretty large, a king-sized bed, and a couch with 2 closets. There you go, tell me if you need anything to fit you all, Tazuna said, walking downstairs. Thank you, they said in unison, before going to unpack their things. An hour later, after unpacking and eating, Naruto had a full belly, and he walked down to the shore, and unraveled his Uzumaki bloodline scroll before sitting down. It read, "To awaken the powers of the sea, one can't just command it, one must be accepted by the oceans. Not every Uzumaki may do this, only those who are compatible with the oceans and its will. The subject must meditate on the surface of the ocean. Clearing your mind, envision drops of water falling in front of you, imagine one drop stopping midair, before expanding it in size until it consumes you in your entirety, then envision yourself becoming the water around you. If you are accepted, you obtain the will of the ocean, and you will be granted undying and unhindered control of the seas and their limitless power. Better give it a shot," Naruto said to himself before standing up. Rolling the scroll up and then stepping onto the water from the dock, he walked out a few feet and sat down and crossed his legs, before forming the Torah hand sign, to meditate, eyes closed. After a few minutes to clear his mind, he pictures dripping water in front of him, then one of the drops stopping, then expanding around him. He saw his hands start to break apart into water bubbles, and soon he was gone, but yet still aware of the sea around him. Then fish, of all shapes, colors and sizes, began swimming around the area. He then saw a shining blue light beneath himself, and it rose up to him fast until it hit his non-existent form and everything went white. Naruto's real body stayed the way it was, and a sphere of water rose up around him and sank into the water. Naruto opened his eyes and saw the same blue light floating ahead of him, and he reached out and grabbed it. Just then he rose from the water standing and he looked around. Weird, he said. Wonder what to do now. The boy walked towards shore, to grab the scroll, when the water ahead of him parted enough for the seabed to be stood on, and he looked around. Before stopping, the water dove under his feet and rose him up as the gap was filled. He grinned. Cool, he for holding his hand out to sea and envisioning a whirlpool. In seconds, water ahead of him began churning and spinning, before opening up a giant vortex of water, capable of swallowing some of the biggest ships. Oh, yeah, this is the way to do. Naruto nodded to himself before rising his hand up, and the whirlpool shot up and became a hurricane funnel of pure raging water. He swiped his other hand sideways, and the spinning water column was sliced in half, and the upper half became its own water funnel along with the other half, making 2. He directed the 2 with his hands to spread apart, then he swung his arms in, and the 2 typhoons collided, exploded in a huge burst of water. Naruto's smile was beyond big. Hell, it was beyond the Grinch. He jumped up and kicked his heels together before plummeting into the water, which seconds later pushed him back up with a small geyser, for air. I'm going to love this, Naruto beamed. Ah! A man screamed in terror, running from Daemon through the streets of a water country town, riddled with dead and withered corpses of all its civilians. Daemon held his hand out in front of himself as he walked calmly after the man, before waving his hand swiftly to the right, and the man's body was severed in half, horizontally. The Blood Angel walked up to the remains and held his hand over them, and all of the mon's blood was absorbed into his hand. He looked up at the sky. Wonder how Narunia and the others are doing, he said to no one in particular, before pulling out a cigarette from a recently stolen pack and lighting it with a red lightning bolt from his finger. Whoa, whoa, Naruto said as he struggled to keep his balance atop a massive swirling typhoon of water, flapping and rolling his arms to stay where he was, as the spinning water column tore over the surface of the ocean below. Keep balanced. Listen to me, you damn legs, he ordered, as the water began to spin him, but he recovered only to spin a little again, and eventually he was pulled into the column and sent flying through the air by its force. As the blonde boy flew through the air, the water column collapsed and faded back into the depths of the ocean. But Naruto was still flying through the air, and he skid across the water, bouncing like a rock until crashing onto land and sliding on his face until he came to a dead stop at Ino's feet. Ooh, ouch! Naruto grunted before raising his head up and seeing feet in front of him, and he trailed his vision up to notice it was Ino. But that wasn't the only thing he noticed. He saw right up her skirt, and through her skin-tight fishnet shorts. Black lace lingerie, or no? He said, scrambling to his feet, blushing. Ino smirked. Like what you see? She chuckled. Ye wait. You're not gonna kick my face in, are you? Naruto asked, blushing. Ino started laughing. No, she said, calming down. I actually like it when you check me out, she winked. With that, Naruto stood up and clapped his hands together. Well, now that that's solved, time to get back to my training, he said. Ino was staring at him but not in the eyes. Nani? Naruto asked. No response. Nani? Naruto asked. Ino's eyes glistened. Nani? Naruto asked before looking down to see what she was staring at, only to see his own bulge in his pants. He blushed yet kept a calm face. Well, yeah, that's embarrassing, he said. Not unless you don't intend to keep in your pants, Ino said seductively, walking up to him and kissing him before stroking his manhood through his pants. His eyes nearly rolled in the back of his head, but he regained himself and pushed her off. No. Not now, tonight maybe, but I need to train while I can, he said. Ino took a look of disappointment. Okay. Fine, but I'm getting you tonight. I can't take it anymore, Ino said before winking. I originally came to see how training was going, she said. Well, here, Naruto said, grabbing her hand, and he led her out onto the surface of the calm waters, walking out a ways. What are you doing, Naruto? Ino asked. Showing you my training. Now stand totally still, okay? He said. Okay. Ino said, standing still. Naruto held his hands out and closed his eyes. The water beneath Ino froze into ice in a circle around her, before a cylinder of ice rose up about 6 feet and held her above the water. Okay, you can sit down now. I just didn't want you to end up falling through the ice, he said before turning around, and Ino sat down on the ledge. The ice wasn't cold to her behind for some reason, so assumed Naruto made it that way, which he did. The blonde Kitsune nin held out his hands and the water began to stir in front of him, shifting and lifting, building momentum, as waves kicked up, and crashed against each other, and creating bigger waves as wind began to pick up. The clouds darkened and began to swirl before the waters below it swirled around in a whirlpool. A giant tornado blasted from the clouds and crashed onto the surface of the water, creating a Category 1 hurricane. Ino held her hand in front of her face to block the wind and water. How can you control the wind too? She asked over the noise of the newly formed storm. Wind's my natural affinity. Also hurricanes and typhoons are part of the ocean too, so it makes it twice as easy, he yelled back to her over the powerful winds. Ino started clapping. She was impressed to say the least. Back with Daemon, the Blood Angel took a drag of his cigarette and exhaled it before he all of a sudden got a certain sensation he knew all too well, and he took a deep breath, before whipping his head to the west, where far off over the ocean he saw a large storm cloud, and lightning flashing. Such power, that is no natural storm. I can sense a great strength in blood brewing, he grinned, before he flapped his blood wings and propelled himself with such force he cut the wind and destroyed the ground he jumped from. Naruto created 3 water columns that shot up and wrapped around the column of wind and pulled it deep into the water, creating a strong whirlpool which Naruto jumped into and stood on the spinning water in the dead center without spinning himself, as he had it slowed down and regained its calm waters over time. Naruto kept his balance the entire time until it stopped. Awesome, Naruto said. Naruto. Ino yelled. You do know what happens when a whirlpool gives way, don't you? Huh? He asked turning to her. Just then a massive burst of water from beneath Naruto blasted up in a geyser, launching the boy through the air screaming, and to the shore of the island. Oh my god, Naruto. Ino said jumping from the ice cylinder he made her which cracked and crumbled before falling into the water. Ino dashed across the water and onto land where he was once again face first in the dirt. She knelt down next to him. You okay, babe? She asked, shaking his shoulder, before rolling him over. He wasn't breathing. Oh god, not right after I fell for him. She said. She put her hands on his chest and using the medical jutsu she picked up from Tsunade and Sakura, she created green chakra, before using CPR at the same time, pressing on his chest. Naruto peeked his right eye open to see Ino and then opened his other eye and Ino saw him, just before he grabbed the back of her head and pulled her into a sensual kiss. Ino's eyes widened and her face went red, but the last thing she was gonna do would be to pull away. Okay, so he tricked her. Big deal, this made up for it and then some. Ino slid her tongue into his mouth, and straddled his lap, grinding against him, obviously wanting more. Ahem. They heard and Ino inwardly screamed blood murder. She was so horny, why does she have to stop? They broke their kiss and looked up to see Sakura and Hinata standing there. The pink and lavender-haired girls were blushing furiously, Sakura tapping her foot anxiously. Ino, do you remember the deal we made or not? Sakura said, her eye twitching. Yes. Sorry. I couldn't control myself, Ino said, getting off of him and standing up, leaving the bulge in his pants to be seen by Sakura and Hinata. Hinata inwardly laughed at Sakura and Ino. She'd already gotten her taste of her man. Deal? What deal? Naruto asked. Nothing. Sakura said. Lunch is ready. Let's go, she said. Food. Naruto exclaimed and hopped to his feet and Ino sighed before shrugging and going after the others. They soon reached Tazuna's home and entered. They kicked off their shoes and worked their way to the kitchen where the table was. Temari and Tenten were sitting at the table along with Inari and Tazuna. As Tsunami brought the plates to the table. Hey, have a seat and dig in, Tsunami said. Smells great, Naruto said, sitting down with everyone else, and they began to eat. Back at the shore, Daemon flew through the fog over the great Naruto bridge orbit above the spot Naruto was at in the water. The Blood Angel looked around and didn't see anyone. Damn it, well, the storm's gone. I know they were here. I will find them, he said to himself, but I don't feel that strong blood's presence anymore. How the frozen hell does a power like that just vanish? He continued looking around. This mist is pissing me off, he said before noticing the great Naruto bridge. Well, if you can't find your target by looking, draw them out, he said before his wings grew a bit longer and the feathers on lining the lower rim of his wings grew out almost like razors. He extended his wings as far out as possible, sonic zephyr. He said, and with one huge flap of his wings he created a sonic boom and a huge gust of wind that removed the fog from the surrounding area. Now some people could see and most everyone in the land of waves heard the bang. People began to gather outside of their homes to see what created the loud boom. Now for this, just for insurance, Daemon said, holding his hand out towards the bridge and blasting a huge red lightning bolt from his hand that tore through the middle of one of the sections, between the spread out support columns, causing the entire section to crack, shatter and then crumble, into the water below. People began to scream and shout, "Oh my God, what is that?" A woman shouted, pointing at Daemon in midair. "Oh great, you're just noticing the guy in all black with giant liquid red wings 20 feet above you." Daemon snapped. God. He exasperated. People were talking, chattering, and tripping out about how he was. Still don't sense the power. Daemon said. Fine, maybe a direct threat will work, he said before intaking a huge breath of air, causing his chest to grow up and towards as the clouds above began to collect above him and be pulled down. Just before Daemon was about to announce his threat in a mighty omnipotent voice, he saw someone pushing through the crowd of people. That him? He asked himself as he shielded the peak of his forehead with his hand to get a better look. Tazuna pushed his way through the people. What's this about my bridge? He asked, coming to the front of the crowd and seeing the destroyed section of his bridge. And no, not my bridge, not my beautiful precious bridge. WH ha ha hi. He cried, dropping to his knees. Crane says. Picture a squeaky toy noise when his knees hit the ground. Tazuna yelled, flailing his arms around, before bending over and hitting the ground with his fists, tears comically blasting from his eyes, before lifting his head, focusing his teary-eyed rage, to the presence above. You. How could you? You freak. Do you realize how long it took me to build that bridge, you worthless freak of nature? He wailed as Inari, Naruto and all of the girls walked up through the crowd to the front. Daemon pointed to himself and then looked around in every direction before realizing he was the one being insulted. How dare you? The Blood Angel yelled, pointing at Tazuna. Pay for your insolence, you old bag. He yelled as red electricity gathered on his fingertip, and a thin bolt shot out towards Tazuna. G-san. Inari screamed before ramming Tazuna in the side, pushing him out of the way, only for the blood-red lightning to pierce right through his chest, and impact the ground behind him. Inari's eyes went blank and blood dripped from his mouth and he hit the ground. Inari. Tazuna yelled. No. First my bridge and now my grandson. Bake Muno. He yelled with unyielding anger, tears falling from his eyes. Naruto was in shock as he stared at Inari's lifeless body with trembling eyes. Oh my God. Sakura gasped, cupping her hands over her mouth. The other girls gasped and/or shrieked at the sight. Daemon's arm went limp and he took on a bored look. Why is it that everywhere I got the young sacrifice themselves for the old? They're gonna die soon anyways. I mean, that's like what? The 11th time. And I haven't even been awake for a week yet. Naruto and the others ran over to Inari's side. Daemon floated down to the ground in front of the people. Do you see the problem with sacrificing yourself so that someone old can live the last year of their miserable cantankerous life? The logic is flawed. I mean, come on. What good comes from the old outliving the young? God, you're all a bunch of idiots, he ranted philosophically. Just then Daemon felt a pulse of energy he hadn't felt since before he went into hibernation. It rippled through his body like sound waves and he could hear someone's heartbeat. Daemon whipped his head to the source of the sensation and seeing Naruto. Him, he said to himself, remembering the boy from the info his feathers gathered. Just then a burst of red chakra rippled out from Naruto's body as tears fell from his eyes. You, son of a bitch. I'll make you pay. Naruto roared and the girls and crowd stepped back as red chakra seeped from his body and consumed him, forming a red fox tail. Oh no, Sakura said, pulling Inari's body back. She knew what was about to happen. The demon fox cloak took on the fox ears and Naruto dropped to all fours. R. He growled viciously, before disappearing in a blur and reappearing in front of Daemon, already sweeping a death-yielding claw towards his face. To Daemon it seemed to move in slow motion as he thought, hello, that was quick.